Hello, I'm Noel Kingsbury, and with Annie Gelfoyle, together we run Garden Masterclass. Welcome to our YouTube channel. We put here the recordings from the session we do every Thursday evening at 6 o'clock London time, a practice we started during the April 2020 lockdown as a way of reaching out to the global garden and landscape community. We hope you enjoy this recording, but also please do check out our website for all the amazing range of information-packed webinar and workshop recordings we have. Maybe consider joining us because members get access to our vast archive of free material as well as discounts on the webinar recordings. We've also recently started a podcast channel on Substack. So we do a weekly podcast and so that's a way of accessing a lot of our recorded material that you can listen to whilst you're digging or driving or watering or whatever else. So I very much hope you enjoy this recording and looking forward to keeping in contact.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Well, it's 6 o'clock for you guys, but for Wendy and I, it's 1 o'clock because I'm in North America. I am at Chanticleer, having a lovely time because I don't start teaching till Saturday, and so I'm swanning around, taking lots of photographs, and I'm with Hannah Fox. Some of you will know Hannah. She is a guest gardener here this week, and she's just been giving a wonderful talk to the staff, but she's fantastic. So that's enough about me. So here we are, 6 o'clock Thursday night. Tonight we are going to talk about Scribehound Gardening, and some of you may already know about it, some of you may know nothing about it. And we have the wonderful Jane Perrone, who's, I love your title, Jane, Head of Inspiration. As soon as, oh, here's Jodie, fantastic. As soon as I say that, I just think of W1A. It's just like, you're Head of
Oh,
Inspiration.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's the vibe.
yes, exactly. And Noel and I share a writing spot, and wonderful Adverley, Richmond, and Jodie's made it in on time. Jodie,
Hi,
well
Jodie.
done.
Am I on
Looking
time? God, I have to
to
say,
the daisy. Take a breath. Take a breath. Yeah.
that was twice as long as it ever
Normally,
normally.
oh, it's always the way, isn't it? It's always the way. Anyway, so tonight we're talking about Scribehand gardening. Jane, we're going to start with you. Can you sort of fill us in about what it is and when it started, and the backstory to what it's all about?
Sure. So Scribehound Gardening, I'm often asked to explain what it is, which is I think it's sometimes people take a second to understand what we're doing, because we aren't a magazine, we're not a blog, we're not a TV show. We
Yes.
have podcasts, but we're not just a podcast. So but I think what the Scribehound Gardening, the idea is that we are challenging traditional media and doing things in a new way. And so how this was all started actually was down to our founder Chris Horn, who comes from a background of growing up in the countryside and being interested in rural affairs. So in September 2023, he set up Scribehound Countryside, which basically brought together 30 experts in rural affairs. So everybody from shepherds and foragers to hedge layers and farmers. And they started writing about anything to do with the countryside, rural affairs basically, and where things differed from other publications that covered the same kind of issues is that those writers had editorial freedom. They were able to choose their own topics and weren't under the thumb of an editor. The aim was to open up conversations about the countryside, but within a sort of a gated community. So it's not just the sometimes angry free for all of social media. It's a place where everyone can have an interesting debate without things becoming toxic, put their own views, get expert views. So that was where it started with the Countryside channel. And then in September 2024, Scribehound Limited was set up. So it separated off from the company that Chris had been working for, which is called ITAP, and became its own entity. And then separate funding was acquired to launch Scribehound Gardening, and since then Scribehound Food has also been added on in the spring of this year, and the principle is the same as the original channel, but the content is independent and separate. So we've got these 30 garden writers all contributing one piece a month, given editorial freedom. So as head of inspiration, I'm not there saying, oh, Adverley, please can you write about dahlias this month? Or Noel, can you tell me about why
Hanging
daffodils are great? I'm here as a role of kind of encouragement and liaison rather than telling people what to write. And I have to say that all the writers have really embraced that very fully, the enjoyment of being able to choose their own topics. We've got two figureheads, and the two figureheads are James Alexander Sinclair, who is a well-known British garden designer. He's also vice president of the RHS and an award-winning garden writer and a broadcaster. He also is one of the hosts of one of our podcasts. And the other figurehead is Sue Biggs, who you probably recognise that name. She was the first female director of the RHS, and before that she was managing director of Kuoni Travel, so many years in the industry and a wonderfully influential figure. So James and Sue came along in autumn of last year and picked the 30 writers, and then I came into post at the end of 2024 as head of inspiration. So that's kind of a summary of where we've come from and where we're at right now, and the sort of pillars of how we operate. Is that a sort of a good summary to start with?
I think so, yeah. And so give us a flavour of, we know who's on the Scribehound team, but give us a smattering of the different people and the different subjects and the different backgrounds of the people that are on, so that people can get a feel for that.
Yeah, so Sue and James picked very carefully because they wanted to have a really broad church of people covering different aspects of horticulture. So we've got really renowned garden designers, Tom Stewart Smith, Annie, of course, and then we've got plants people, we've got Sarah Raven, we've got John Grimshaw, people who've got really interesting but different backgrounds in plants and have years of experience in the field. Then we've got garden historians like Sandra Lawrence and Adverley. We've got a real range of different types of writers. I also, as well as being head of inspiration, write on the platform and tend to concentrate on houseplants, although my last column wasn't about houseplants. Then we've got Matt Pottage, who used to be curator at Wisley, and he's also a fellow houseplant nut. So we really tried to get a good range.
I think, to be fair to Matt, I think Matt would rather be known that he is the head of horticulture at the Royal Parks at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the day job, but he's my houseplant pal, basically. we both love variegated leaves also, just as an aside. So it's a really mixed bunch, and the joy there is that there will be some names that you'll immediately recognise. I haven't yet mentioned people like Alan Titchmarsh. We should sort of cross ourselves because of course he is he is basically God, and then people like Adam Frost, and perhaps probably my name would be new to a lot of subscribers, but we've all been chosen for specific reasons by Sue and James to cover particular areas, or because of our amazing writing, or because of our amazing writing, obviously myself not included. So we've got a real mix in there, and that's been really borne out by, I think, the last few months of columns, that they've all just been really diverse, but journalism and writing that of a standard that I hope you probably won't see elsewhere.
And can you explain how it actually physically works for people who, what are the mechanics of it once you log on and you subscribe and you how does it actually come into your computer?
Indeed. Phone? Well, you've got two choices. So you can either use your laptop and sit at the Scribehound Gardening website, log in that way, and when you log into that, you can see all the articles that have been uploaded in the past 6 or 7 months. So that's one of the great things about subscribing now, is that not only are you getting an article every day, but you've got this incredible back catalogue of work. If you prefer to do things on your mobile, we have an app which allows you to use that to access the articles. So the articles come in two forms. You've got the written version and you've got the spoken version. And again, I think this is another point of distinction between us and other garden media, in that you've got Alan Titchmarsh's piece in front of you, but you can also listen to Alan reading the piece. So it really brings a lot more personality into the experience. And that allows you to listen, say, if you're doing the garden or walking the dog. So if you don't have time to actually read, you can listen instead. And you can opt to have a weekly or a daily read. So if you don't want to be overwhelmed by an email popping into your inbox every day telling you about the day's articles, you can choose to have an article that an email that comes once a week summarizing that week's content. So the joy is having a lovely listen, and then you can pop onto the website or the app, and if you've got a view, then you can comment. And I think one of the other things that I love as a fan of many of the garden writers who I'm writing alongside is that you can then say, well, what did you mean, Ben Dark, when you were talking about, I don't know, Ben covers some very sort of fascinating but slightly esoteric subjects. So you might want to sort of ask Ben for a bit more information, and he's there to provide that. So it's really delightful to have that extra interaction with the writers and with other people who are reading those articles as well.
I think it's really important that we stress this is whatever we're calling it. I do tend to call it a journal that is really focusing on the written and spoken word. The word. The magazine industry, obviously something as visual as gardening, garden media has become so dominated by photography, and that everything hangs around the photographs, and the art editor rules the roost, and our art editors usually know next to nothing about horticulture, barely know one end of a daisy from another, although some of them are very, very good. But I mean, that lack of knowledge there, I think, is always an Achilles heel for them. So to be able to write with for photographs provided as illustrations and not the main feature, is for those of us who like writing and are reasonably good at it and feel it's important. This is so liberating.
Yeah, and it's probably a good time now to give Jane a bit of a break and bring in Adverley and Jodie, who are two of our fellow Scribehounders. So, Adverley, I mean, what is it? Why did you say yes? I'll do it, and how do you find it? Tell us your experience of being a Scribehounder.
How was I hooked? Well, James was very persuasive. I have to say, it's very difficult to say no to James, and he's so sweet about it all. You don't realise that you're being sort of strong-armed until it's all too late and you're in there. But I have to say, I'm really enjoying writing on Scribehound, even though I probably drive Jane to distraction. I am the one that's constantly saying, I'll get my copy over to you as soon as I can. Oh my goodness, this is happening, I promise. All of that. But I just love the fact that there's so many different voices and so many different ways that people write. We're not all the same. And the fact that there's just so much content, and I love being able to sort of make a list of things I'd really like to write about, and then I choose what I want to write. Nobody's sending me emails saying, oh, would really like you to do a 500-word such and such. We can literally write what we want. And I like the fact that we can reference fellow writers' articles, which I've done quite a bit, because sometimes it makes it easier to sort of say, well, yeah, this is really, really interesting. But if you read Noel's article from August that explains such and such, and I think that is really valuable, because not everybody will have necessarily listened to all the articles, because I mean, I know they come into your inbox every day, etc. But I do believe that sometimes people build up a selection, and certainly because I go through phases where I'm traveling quite a lot, it's really nice to be able to download them. So if you've missed a few over the last few weeks, you can actually go through and download them all, and you can listen to them later on. So I absolutely love that. But certainly just being able to write whatever I want that works for me.
Yeah, and do you find, because Noel and I have the luxury of sharing one spot, I know
disappeared.
Oh, can you not hear me? Yep. Can you hear me, Adverly?
Yeah, you disappeared.
Yeah. No. So Noel and I have the luxury of sharing a spot. So we both write every other month, and that's lovely because we both have a month to kind of think about something, and then a month to get the piece in. But you're every month. So how do you find that? Is that are you sort of is that an easy thing to do, or are you constantly thinking, oh God, next month I've got to get this in?
I was initially, but which is probably why I was always late with my articles. And I'm sort of thinking, oh, I've got to, this has got to be absolutely, spot on, and I've got to get it in by. And then you start getting a little bit stressed. And I suddenly thought, actually, do you know what? I just need to relax into this. And I think I actually know what I'm writing up until October, don't I? And I send Jane sort of email. In fact, I changed my mind yesterday from what I was going to write and moved it to October. Again, that's another nice thing, is that you're not sort of stuck with an idea. So I sent a message saying, oh, I'm going to write about pomegranates, I think, or then I thought, oh no, I'll actually do this because that's really more interesting. And the fact that just telling her, then you can just do it. But I'm getting better. It's getting easier. It's now sort of part of my sort of working
monthly routine
life.
Yeah,
so I'm sort of putting in sort of other things, and Scribehound is automatically sort of there. I have to schedule it in what I'm going to do. So it's actually okay. It's now part of my psyche.
Good. And Jodie, I mean, you are a garden writer, first and foremost, aren't you? A journalist. So how is it for you? Because and how does it differ from writing for a magazine or putting a book together or whatever? I mean, how do you find the contrast?
Well, I am lucky enough to write for a lot of different and good gardening magazines, and I don't regard this as in competition with them at all. I think they're complementary, and you get something different out of it. I know some of my best friends are art editors, and I hear what you're saying. And I both agree and disagree, because part of what's nice about a magazine is that glossy, tactile, physical thing. But you, as the writer, you do tend to play second fiddle. You're completely right on that. Not just in terms of space, where I find I'm often squashed while the pictures spread, but particularly in terms of scheduling. And that's what's lovely for me. I can have an idea and I can just write it. I take often my own pictures. It's places I've been, people I've talked to. With a magazine, you have to have a set of glamorous pictures before you can have an idea run in the magazine. And that often means that things are a year in the pipeline. And I think there's strength to that. But what I absolutely love about this is I can decide today and I can write tomorrow. And Adverly, you think you're late. I'm often right today.
I'm not revealing any. I have no league table of lateness. It's fine. Your secrets are safe with me.
I actually bumped into one other Scribehound at an exhibition in London a few weeks ago, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing here, sort of." Hanging out in galleries and drinking champagne when I should be finishing my Scribehound article. And he just looked at me and he said, I haven't even started mine. And it was supposed to be in sort of like the next day. It was like, I don't think I'm as bad.
Thing. The community thing, I think it actually spreads in every different direction. So as you're saying, Adverly, we are a little gang now, the writers. We have our own WhatsApp writers room, and I mean, often it's quiet, and every once in a while, obviously everybody's having a difficult day, and there's all kinds of silliness flying around, which is great fun, stimulating to our ideas. The once again, the immediacy of Scribehound, because my piece goes live, I get a notification that it's gone, and then I start getting your piece has received a comment, and then I go and have a look, and I'm talking to the people who are reading and kindly commenting on my feature as I go along, and that is incredibly stimulating. In fact, for me, it's led to, one of my features was a spin-off from a comment from one of the subscribers who I was writing about the importance of visitor revenue for a lot of the public gardens. It's crucial to their budgets to keep the place going. And she said, don't forget the National Garden Scheme. How could we? But she was about to have an opening, and she didn't live that far from me. So I said, right, well, I'll come to your opening. And that was the subject for one of my next Scribehound pieces. And I find all of that it's really good fun. And I think it kind of goes every which way, actually. I get the feeling that the subscribers like having that conversation as well.
Yeah,
I think the thing about community is really important, because I always used to feel that being a garden writer was actually an incredibly lonely job. I mean, the only sort of get together was those sort of awful Garden Media Guild Christmas lunches where you're sort of crammed into that place underneath the Savoy Hotel or wherever it was. No, this is actually, obviously, it's a much more small and select group, but it's nice being able to have that sort of, well, as you've been describing, this bouncing around, and the feeling you've got colleagues, and that you could perhaps, if need be, actually ask their advice, or be prepared to, share thoughts on something. That collegiality, as well as the kind of, witty exchanges on the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
In the interest of balance, we as Garden Masterclass have actually been finalists at the Garden Media Guild.
Oh, yes, I am.
And it was a very jolly affair. So, just before we get the letters piling in, we have had a question from Wendy in South Carolina saying number of words. And of course, that's the brilliant thing, is that our article, I mean, we were given in the very early days a sort of, sort of a bit of a ballpark figure, but basically it can be as long or as short as we want, can't it, Jane? I mean, I don't know if you've sent anyone's homework back saying must do more.
Get out the red pen.
Well, I mean, this is one of the interesting things. I mean, I would say that the length varies hugely. I mean, I can tell you more in terms of audio length than in terms of word count, but audio length wise, it might be as short as 5 minutes. There have been occasional articles that have run to sort of 24 minutes of audio, so it really varies. I think my ideal would be that the length suits the topic. So there might be a 500 word kind of very pithy, very to the point piece that you want to write, and 500 words is enough. In some cases, there might be a much more in-depth piece that you want to write, kind of a long read, and that's fine too. I mean, I would always say to people, you want people to be able to listen for a period of time while they're, I don't know, doing the washing up or walking the dog or doing the weeding. But if you've got more time, obviously, then you can just roll on another article one after the other. So it's really as the content requires, which is, again, you're not trying to put a quart into a pint pot to make something work in a space just because it's got to be that length. So that's another sort of aspect.
Yeah, I haven't done this yet, but you may one day get, from me, a sample of so-called long-form journalism, the kind of 3,000 words or so. And I think that is something that is, in fact, it's really important, that so much of media has just gotten to shorter and shorter sound bites. And certainly in my career, my actually quite long career in garden writing, when I started out, it was like you'd quite often write 1,200 words, and so often now it's 750 or 800. And it's really important that we have things like this, the London Review of Books, where you've got essays that are, or reviews that are, a good few thousand words long, and you can really, build up an argument, cover a lot of ground. I mean, Hortus, I don't know whether anyone has ever written for or we tortoise these days. I mean, I wrote for Hortus for quite a few years, and the opportunity to sort of, well, to sit down and think, well, I've actually got 3,000 words is a real luxury, and of course that was virtually without illustrations. And I would, just like to flag up that one day I'm gonna do that, because I think it is important that we do give the opportunity to
Just give me plenty of warning, Noel, so
Okay.
I've got time to check through that long audio.
I do think this point about it's as long as it needs to be, because I think as a writer who very often is writing to a specific word count for my print publications, I do know that there's often things I would have liked to put in, things I would have liked to say, but I can't. I could write them in there, but then somebody else is going to cut them out, so I edit myself down. But here I don't have to, and that I think is a real luxury,
Yeah, and I'm sure you fellow Scribehounders will agree that we have the most amazing backup. So Jane is part of a team. Jane, you kind of corral us and herd us and send out things saying, have you, it's deadline day, everybody, or, which is brilliant. But then obviously, we've got Louis who does the recording and deals with all the audio stuff. And then we've got other people behind the scenes with you. So it's not just you, Jane, but I feel really well supported. And also, I've occasionally said, can I do this? Yeah, you can. Right, fine. And so my article a couple of months ago, I said, can I have Simon Lysaght kind of drop in and say something? He went, yeah, why not? And I'm planning something here at Chanticleer, which is a little bit different. So hopefully that will work out. So, that I think is great for us, because it gives us that confidence to stretch the boundaries a bit, do something a bit different, and sort of, and you guys are open to those, wacky ideas and something a little bit different. What I'd be interested to know from Adverley and Jodie and Noel is who reads the articles and who listens to the articles. Start with you, Jodie. Are you a reader or a listener?
Well, I'm a bit of both, as it happens, because there's the whole dog walking theme coming up here, and that is definitely a very good time for me to catch up. But I do like reading, and so and I like looking at the pictures. And often if I've listened to a piece, quite often my interest is piqued, and I'll go back and have a look through. Sometimes because I want to reacquaint myself with the information that's been put in there, but also just the pictures. I mean, Matt Pottage's last piece on curating your houseplants, you have to look at the pictures to believe just how incredibly perfectly somebody's home can be presented. I'm still assimilating that one. Quite frankly.
And then feel really inadequate afterwards. Yeah.
Totally inadequate. Yes, my houseplants are all off stage over here. You'll
Adverley, what about you? Are you a reader or a listener?
I'm a listener, but sometimes I will listen and go through and look at the pictures as well, because I'm also quite a visual person. I like being a historian. I sort of quite like my images. And yes, and I enjoy that. And as I said before, sort of when you download them, you sort of get a better chance of sort of reading and listening. But I have to say, my preference is to listen when I'm just out and about doing things.
Yeah. And Noel, what about you? You've got your microphone off, Noel.
He's a reader.
Well, he's silent at the moment. Noel, turn your
have I confessed this to you, Adley? Yeah, I virtually never listen, for the simple reason that I listen to so many podcasts anyway, I mean, history and politics, that there really isn't space in my life to listen. And the thing about reading is you can take it at your own pace. And some articles, I do try to read everything that comes up on Scribehound Gardening. I think I'm 90% of the way to doing that, just simply have a feeling of I feel it as a sort of loyalty to my colleagues. And sometimes I do just kind of skim through, and others, particularly if it's by Adverley or Jodie or Annie, I'll read a lot more carefully.
He's such a creep.
Or Ben. I mean, Ben, you need to sort of
Ben, you need to listen to 3 times and then read it.
and actually sort of make he needs footnotes.
This is the
I
wonderful Ben
think
Dark.
so it's reading, obviously you can take your own speed.
Well, I'm a listener, and I do sometimes, well, I do also look at the images as well, but I have to confess that Scribehound Gardening is my alarm clock. So ever since it started, and I've never owned up to this before, ever since it started, I wake up at a ridiculous time in the morning when I know it's just popped into the inbox at about 4 o'clock, because I'm like, who is it today? And I'll listen to it, utterly mad, a little bit half asleep. I might need to listen to it twice, then I'll drift back to sleep. Then very often I dream about the writer or the topic.
Do we now? Let's not have any details. Let's not have any.
Marvelous.
I mean, it's just, but honestly, my body clock has got into that. I know when I'm in the UK, it's about 4 in the morning, it goes in, bing, I wake up. Who is it today? And like I say, if it's Ben Dark, you've got to listen to it 3 times, and then you've got to look up a few words, and then you've got to read it. He's just fantastic. But I just love it. It's ridiculous. It's like, it's so silly. The novelty has not worn off.
It is such a different medium, and I think the novelty will take a long time to wear off, because it's such a different way of doing things, and somehow so much more authentic.
Yeah.
And also,
I should just say though, 2 things. One, you don't get a ping on your phone at 4 in the morning. The article, the email, you get an email which comes into your inbox if you've chosen a daily email, which you can opt out of and have weekly at about 7 o'clock. And actually, I think we have just changed I think it's the publication time has changed to nearer 6, so your 4 a.m.
Right, so I can have a lie-in, can I?
You can have a lie-in, yes, for various technical reasons. But as I say, that's the thing. Everyone uses Scribehound Gardening differently, and that's the great thing, that it's flexible enough that some people might only be interested in garden design, and therefore they're going to go into the app or the website and click on the garden design tab and really specialize in that. In an era when people are paying a significant fee every month for just one Substack of one writer, it's not too inconceivable that you might there might be 5 or 10 or 15 or 3 writers on Scribehound Gardening that you just want to hear from every month, and that's a wonderful introduction and way of getting hold of their content. And as I say, just being able to interact with that person. I mean, the thrill that I got when Alan Titchmarsh wrote a comment on one of my pieces was beyond compare. Or when I was able to write a comment on his piece and get a response from him, or when you're able to quiz Ben Dark, as you say, about his incredible flight of fancy or brilliant skewering of one aspect of horticulture. It's just really nice in a way that you've cut out the noise of just a public forum, and you're actually able to engage in a proper conversation with people.
Yeah.
Exactly how I tend to describe Scribehound, as a curated Substack. I think it opens up. And for me, I don't think the novelty will ever wear off, because I mean, the reason I was a little bit late today was that I was gardening, as I do once a week, at Great Dixter, where I'm surrounded by all sorts of people, and we have all kinds of conversations and interactions, and I find it incredibly stimulating. And it's, as Noel says, as a writer, ironically, you're often just quite often by yourself in your room writing. And what I think Scribehound does, it gives me another hit of that conversation, that meeting of similarly minded but always different people coming at something that we all like, but from their own unique perspectives. It's really fun, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the discussions are really good as well. I found, I was just thinking, do you remember when James wrote that article about forsythias?
Yes.
And the woman who's got the national collection was the first one to comment. Oi!
He deserved it.
But it was just nice the way that from then on there was just all these comments that are saying, "Oops, James," all of this. But it's it's the conversations.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
that makes Scribehound unique.
Yeah.
I really do.
I mean, I'd like to sort of mention Jan Etherington, who I adore listening to. I mean, if you don't know her, you'll know her writing. If you listen to Radio 4, she writes, is it Conversations from a Long Marriage? And it's so funny, and she's just so clever with words, and she's not a gardener, but she is a gardener because she's having to garden her garden due to her husband being ill. And I just love it because it's poignant, but it's funny, and she's so brilliant with comedy, isn't she?
Yeah,
So,
she's a real treasure, and I think that's very relatable to everybody. That not everybody, we're all learning. We're all on a learning curve wherever we are on that journey. And Jan really encapsulates that feeling of learning through experience, and just gardening. The way that gardening works is that every year is different. You're constantly being educated by your own space and learning what works and what doesn't work. And she's just so much fun, and it's just so hilarious to listen to.
And she sends herself up, doesn't she? And her last article was a sort of end of school report, and it was hysterical. Absolutely. So Jane, can you just focus on some of the other aspects to this, because we've mentioned podcasts. We've got the idea now that every day you get an article come in by one of the team, but can you just expand, because it's expanding in different directions. So what else can people enjoy?
Sure. So there are two podcasts that we produce, and each of them comes out on a weekly basis. So one is hosted by me and is called The Deep Dive. And these podcasts are they're not behind a paywall. So anybody who's a Scribehound gardening subscriber can listen, but you don't have to be one to listen. So The Deep Dive is really, I suppose, it's a sort of introduction to what we're doing on Scribehound. So every week on a Thursday, an episode comes out, and it's an interview by me with one of our writers about a piece. So in fact, today the piece just happens to have been written by Noel Kingsbury, talking about the native plant debate, the article that Noel contributed most recently. So it is a chance to sort of lay out what that article is about. So if you doesn't really matter if you haven't read it on Scribehound, and then go a bit deeper. So find out a little bit more about why the writer chose to tackle that topic, perhaps the response from subscribers, other aspects that maybe they didn't pull into the article, sort of some of the nitty-gritty of the debate. And it really varies every week according to exactly the content. Sometimes we stray very far from the original article and go off on all sorts of gardening tangents. And other weeks we just go really deep into the piece and cover many different aspects. So it gives you a taster of the kind of content that's available on Scribehound Gardening. Our other podcast is presented or hosted by two of our writers, our figurehead James Alexander Sinclair and our writer Joe Swift. And really this is the fun side of gardening. So they do not take themselves too seriously at all. You've got to expect lots of chat, lots of laughter. I mean, the other week I was in the office listening to an episode before it went out, and I was just putting everyone off because I was just laughing so much. It is hilarious. They're very funny together. They don't take themselves too seriously. There is gardening information in there, but they don't like to lay that on too thick. So they keep it very light and accessible. So they cover things like, they cover stuff like, is gardening fun? I think that was their very first episode. And there's lashings of anecdotes from each of their long careers in gardening. It's tremendous fun. So that comes out every Tuesday and really is the kind of anybody, whether you're interested in gardening or not, I think you would find that podcast entertaining. And they also tackle listeners' questions, but they do specify that they don't deal with dead things or boring plant advice. So they are quite brutal. A couple of people have been a little bit taken aback by quite how brutal they are about when somebody asks a very practical question about why their clematis is wilting. They will get a very abrupt response, and the reward for a good question is that you get one of our Scribehound Gardening gnomes. sent to you. So I'm the person who emails you to give you the exciting news that you've been awarded a gnome, and that will then wing its way to you. So that's really, it's just really fun, and it's a different side of horticulture, but presented by two of our writers. So it's all part of the kind of the different aspects of horticulture that we all love. So those are our podcasts, and they've been going for about 2 or 3 months now, and hopefully on the Deep Dive podcast I'll get to speak to every single writer over time, and cover different aspects of everyone's work. So yeah, if I've already interviewed you, I'll be back to interview you again in a few months' time.
So we talked about the fact there are 30 writers, 30 days. What happens when there's 31 days in a month?
It's a good question. So this is another aspect of what we do that we're trying to encourage garden writing and more people to give it a go. So we have the 31st day slot. So anybody can contribute an article to Scribehound Gardening. I am the person who can help you with that. So if somebody takes a look at the site, there are quite clear on the homepage. There is a link which you can click to find out more. But if you struggle, you can email me and I will help you. You can again pick your topic, and provided that it fits in with our community standards, which are quite broad, it will be published on Scribehound Gardening as a community article. And then when there's 31 days in the month, I then select one of those articles to be the 31st day piece. And what that means is your work is up in lights alongside all of these wonderful garden writers, and you get paid for the piece as well. So it's a chance to showcase garden writing from people that you may not have heard of, people to sort of flex their garden writing muscles and have a go. And it's been really interesting to see the different community articles that people have produced, and had some great pieces actually.
And
so
is it quite popular? Is it quite popular?
Yeah, we've had a really good range. We've had a couple of we've had quite a few American writers actually, which is really nice to get voices from outside the UK. We have a lot of non-UK subscribers, so that's really great. And there's a lady who does a column from her garden. Gosh, I'm going to let myself down here by not knowing which American state she's in, but she writes every month a community article about what's going on in her garden. Just so fascinating to get an insight into somebody else's gardening life. So it's really nice where people can use the platform in a different way. And yeah, I really enjoy those contributions. Are fantastic, and I'm hoping that there'll be voices coming out through those pieces that will become established garden writers, the next generation, as it were.
And that point about the United States is interesting, and something I was actually going to bring up, because this is a largely British publication, and it feels quite British, and in a way that's quite sort of does make the writing easier, because one of the problems with garden writing is when you're working for publishers, there's this need to create something that is relevant for everybody within the same sort of climate zone, which means you actually have to, I wouldn't call it blandness, but there's certain levels of information or detail you can't go into because it's too specific to place or climate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that takes out quite a lot of the character of what you're writing about. But obviously, in terms of as a business, it would be really good to get more inroad into that North American market. But then the pressure on us as writers then to write something that is authentic, but at the same time is trying to address people in different climate zones is perhaps a bit of a problem.
I'm not sure.
I kind of feel like lots of, from my understanding of the garden media world, I think lots of American gardeners just like they want to hear about British gardening, and it doesn't really matter to them because America's so diverse anyway, with its own climate zones, from the south to the north, east to west, that actually I think American gardeners are more open to that, because in a way they're used to reading stuff that doesn't fit their own climate. So, and I think there's sort of a feeling that English gardening is sort of set on a pedestal, rightly or wrongly, and so people want to hear about what's happening in the British gardening scene. So I think, you know, but I also that's why I love contributions from people in other countries, because that to me is equally fascinating. I want to know what it's like gardening on a, you know, on the top of a mountain in Vermont, or, you know, in the deep south. I'm fascinated by that, because I think if we really are gardeners, then we want to hear about all gardens in different contexts.
Yeah.
What do you think, Annie? Do you?
Well, and also, I mean, a lot of it's very relevant. I mean, being here in Pennsylvania at the moment, it was great to have Noel's blog this morning, because the native, and I'm sure Wendy, who's listening, you know, the native plant issue here is a bigger deal than it is over with us. And Noel's blog, Noel's podcast was great, because it was the first thing I listened to, and it put it completely into context. And I thought, yeah, you know, and I think that's very interesting for the US readers listeners to tune into. Plus, a lot of our problems are universal. You know, climate change, slugs, you know, predators, whatever that. You know, a lot of these problems are universal. Things that we and you know, things that are we have to deal with as gardeners and designers. So I think there's a lot we have in common.
But so including the ideas and the inspiration. It's not all about problems, is it?
Exactly.
It's about creativity. It's about self-expression. It's about the craft of what you're doing. And although obviously the techniques, the technicalities will change depending on where you are, I think the impulse that shapes it, and the love, I mean, I love doing it. I love the art and craft of it. And I think that's the same for anyone who likes to garden. It's not outdoor housekeeping. It's not a miserable battle against, you know, this, that. Sometimes it does feel like it, but it, you know, really it's a creative act. And I think that's what is nice that's a common theme.
Exactly. And actually, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, and also the other thing is that although it's called Scribehound Gardening, there are an awful lot of, I mean, my articles tend to be about sort of people and places more often than not, as opposed to sort of gardening and, you know, garden design. But, I mean, people like Hugh and his hedgehogs, I mean, I just love that kind of thing, because you just wouldn't normally. Where are you going to read about a hedgehog hospital?
Certainly not in New Zealand, let me just say.
You know, and like little scans of their little bodies and all of that. So with Scribehound, you get just so many just different things. And sort of Sandra talking about, you know, the walled gardens and all of that. And I think really it would be, people would be surprised at the different topics that you will actually find on Scribehound Gardening.
Absolutely. And,
I really do.
That leads very nicely into the next, well, you know, what we should just finish up with, which is next month. So we're on the cusp of August at the moment. And Jane, do you want to sort of explain what's happening in August on Scribehound?
Yes. So we've decided to have a theme month. So without wishing to deaden people's editorial freedom, we've decided to concentrate on a theme for the month of August, looking at asking each writer to choose a garden that really means something to them, and talk about it in a way that takes people on a journey. So whether you want to add a garden to your wish list for travel, or whether you want to just go on a virtual journey with the writer to that garden and experience it vicariously through their words, this theme month gives you the chance to do that. So the idea is we're going through the garden gates, we are looking at the world's best gardens and what we can learn from them in our own gardens. And it's, what's wonderful is that everyone's picked some really diverse gardens. So there's some really famous ones, which is fantastic, because these are key gardens that we all need to know about. But then there's also some choices that you will never have heard of. Mine is particularly out there. We'll may or may not talk about that tonight. But it's a real mix. So the idea is that every day you get this lovely sort of transport of delight, plus you learn something. And we're also incorporating into that an Ask the Experts sort of series where over 2 weeks at the beginning of August, we're going to have a free-for-all where if you're a subscriber, you can ask a question to do with your garden and really covering anything about how you want to make your own garden great. So it could be that you want to know, okay, I want to have the most incredible hot border. What famous gardens can I be inspired by? Where should I go to get inspiration for my own hot border? Or maybe you want to, recreate the walled garden theme of the famous walled gardens of the world in your own little walled garden in a Victorian next to a Victorian house. We will be there on hand to answer your questions. So I'll be sort of corralling everybody and making sure that your questions get answered. So it might be that you've got, Noel coming in and answering a question about planting design or about specific plants for a particular habitat, or it might be that you've got somebody like Hugh Richards coming in to talk to you about permaculture if you're interested in setting up a permaculture garden, or telling you which permaculture gardens you should be visiting. Or it might be me coming in to talk about, okay, you've only got an indoor space and you want an indoor garden. Where do you start? So hopefully that expert sort of advice page will be there and accessible for everyone to take part in, which I think will be really fun. And we'll also allow different writers. It's happened on food. Food has had their theme month in July, and what's happened on food is there's been wonderful interaction between different writers coming up with different ideas, not always agreeing with each other, which is really fun. That's another aspect. And we'll also be reflecting the theme in the Deep Dive podcast as well. So you'll be hearing from different writers about their specific choices and going deeper into that. And the episode of the James and Joe show that came out on Tuesday was also talking about the theme and discussing, garden greatness and what makes a garden great. Because of course we've all got our very own idiosyncratic ideas about that. So it should be a really fun month. I'm really looking forward to it. And we've got a special
I'm glad you mentioned Scribehound food, because I was going to flag that up. That Scribehound, I don't know how many of you subscribe to Scribehound food, but it is. It is a very different body of work, and I suppose the food world is so tied up with people's ethnicity and culture, and it is an immensely diverse group of people who write to Scribehound food. So it's more about the culture of food than actually food. If you think I'm going to pick up some new recipes, it's probably not the place to go. But if you want to really explore the kind of interiority of people's food worlds, it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it.
It's actually unfair to bring that up in the context of Scribehound gardening, because gardening, we are so limited, we are dictated to by climate in the way that with food, we are not dictated to about climate, because basically we can buy anything we want anywhere. And maintain a whole set of food traditions that you can't do with gardening traditions. No, I think it's a wonderful and much kind of, I don't know, I just sort of learned so much about.
Yeah, no, I've loved it. I've loved the food too. Jane, how do people? Where do people go for that? Find the expert, ask the experts. Where is that?
That is going live. Yeah, it's going to be a page that will go live on August the 5th, and then it will be going out one day as in an email. So you'll get an email about it if you're a subscriber, and then it will run for a certain period. I think till the 19th of August. So there's plenty of time for you to ask a question and for it to get answered. And so it'll be a sort of a rolling thing. It's not like it's an hour where you've got to be there for that hour or anything. It's a sort of a chance over 2 weeks to ask a question and have it answered in lots of different ways. And of course, if you have a strong view on something as a subscriber and you want to give your suggestions, you can chime in there as well. So that's the joy, in that it should be there should be lots of different thoughts for each question that makes it sort of extra interesting, rather than just hearing one person's answer. But yeah, that will be running from the 5th to the 19th of August, and it will come out to subscribers.
And of course, there is an offer on that's only on until the last day of this month, July. So if you're listening to this on a recording, this, say in October, this isn't going to be relevant, but I'm sure there'll be other offers. So can you just explain about the offer that's on at the moment?
Yeah, so there is an offer on right now which allows you to try the Scribehound Gardening subscription for a month for just £1, which is obviously great because what can you buy for £1 these days? You certainly can't buy a cup
You
of
can't buy a
coffee
pint of
for
beer, I know
£1.
that much. Yes.
No, indeed. Those of us who are old
just
enough.
about buy a tea bag.
Indeed, you used to be able to buy a coffee for £1, but no more. That's how old I am. Anyway, but yes, so for £1 you can try it out.
in Portugal.
Oh, well, there
This is
you
a
go.
lot more
Lucky
than the
you.
80 cents you buy for a glass of wine.
Well, so for £1 you can try Scribehound Gardening out,
Yeah.
and it's a great way to sort of experience, have a test, and if you can then decide whether you want to subscribe moving forward. And there's also a discount of I think 40% on the annual fee, or you can also subscribe monthly. So if you're the kind of person that just prefers to just go month to month on things, you can also do it that way. But it's just your chance to experience what we're doing, and hopefully you'll enjoy it so much that you want to stick around. But it's a nice offer for those who want to have a taster.
Yeah, and the website is?
Yes, so the website, you can, if you go to or just Google Scribehound Gardening, you'll find it. Our Scribehound Gardening Instagram account has plenty of links for subscribers, and the other thing to say is just that every writer has their own unique subscriber link. So if you love Annie Guilfoyle and you want to support Annie Guilfoyle specifically, then you can use Annie's subscriber link, which will then go through to the sign up page, and that will mean that you're supporting a specific writer if you choose to do so. And that's also just a nice thing that you can say, yeah, hat tip to Annie, and get joined that way.
Yeah, brilliant.
I was just going to ask quickly, how do people ask the question?
So what will happen is so on the there'll be an Ask the Experts article. So it's a new format page for our Q&As. And you'll get sent an email which will invite you to ask questions, and I'll obviously nearer the time the writers will be sent the page also, just to get it bookmarked and so forth. So you'll be able to just as you would in a normal article, make a comment and ask your question that way, and then you'll see the answers from other people's comments nested below, and you can tell a writer from a subscriber, because it sort of tells you that they're a writer, so you can see who's who. And you can also respond to other people's questions. So as I say, subscribers will get that email coming out to them once it's live, and so you've got a good 2-week period. You don't have to rush to contribute, because we'll be covering questions throughout the whole of that 2-week period.
So Jane, if someone does subscribe with the sort of I like to advertly, for example, then they can join in with that Q&A as a subscriber at that moment, and they also to read the whole back catalogue.
Exactly.
Got some time on their hands.
So by subscribing, you are then opening up. You can choose to follow specific writers, and you can go into that back catalogue through the app or the website. I have to say the search function on the app and the website is really good. So if you just search for a word like I don't know, like Adverley, you'll find all of Adverley's articles. You can also go through the columnist list and find Adverley that way. But if you want to cover a particular topic or a particular plant, you can just search, and the search is actually really effective. So anyone that's actually the joy of joining now, that you've got this huge sort of repository of all these articles that have been submitted to catch up on. So if you're like me, and when you sort of subscribe to a new podcast or a new thing, you just kind of binge on it, you've got lots of lovely binging that you can do over your sort of break. If you're going on holiday or something, you can catch up with all these articles.
Great. So to finish up with Jane, are we allowed to name or hint at our garden for August?
Yes, I think that's fine. I don't want to give everything away.
You want us
but
to
I'm
hint rather than name it?
It's up to you. I mean, I'd like to hope that we sort of not everything is revealed, but obviously not all the writers are here. But if you want to give a taster, that's absolutely fine.
I think we should give a clue. I think we should give a clue. Jodie, come on, Jodie, give a clue.
My clue. Well, if you were paying attention to the reason for me being late today. Pretty good.
Excellent. That was
Adley, come on.
excellent.
What's yours?
Me. Oh,
A cryptic clue.
Scottish Japanese collaboration.
That's obvious.
Okay.
Not.
No, come on.
Unfortunately, August is not my writing month, but
Oh, right. No, it's not,
Oh,
is it?
yes.
but at some point I will write about an extraordinary garden which is a long way up in the Vosges Mountains, kind of very near where the Swiss and German borders, but France.
It's one of your favourite gardens, isn't it?
One of my favourite gardens.
Oh, lovely.
Okay, and I will just give a clue. It's pretty obvious, but it has been earmarked as America's most inspirational garden.
And it's probably where you are at the moment.
Are you close to it, Annie?
Top secret. Noel's giving the game away
She's
here.
probably in their Grace and Favour apartment at the moment.
No, that is not my quote. That is a quote by somebody else. But yes, so I think it's nice to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Until the day.
It's going to be great fun, and as I say, it's going to be a real sort of smorgasbord. In that one day you're going to be transported to I don't know, a very famous English garden, for example, and the next day you're going to be in a totally different environment, maybe a garden that you won't ever be able to visit, if I can leave that sort of little teaser there. It's having read these articles, I've just been really enjoying them, and I think it's quite, what's also really nice about this month is that it's not sort of, okay, we're doing top 100 gardens in the world and we've got to include them, because if we don't include them, they'll be annoyed. It doesn't work like that. I made no demands on the writers. So it really is everyone's individual choices, which I think makes it particularly unique in the way that it sort of it flows. So I hope everyone enjoys it.
Oh, fantastic. And we've got some comments. Adam saying, thank you for tonight. I've enjoyed listening and subscribe. Thank you, Adam. And Wendy has also said that when she travels, she really finds there's more similarities than differences in the gardens. An American prairie plants last week in Switzerland. And apparently there's a Swedish prairie garden in front of MoMA in Manhattan. So, you know, let's mix it all up a little bit. Anyway, I think all fellow Scribehounders, we want to thank Jane very much, not just for tonight, but for always being so patient with us when we're late or we come up with a wacky idea and she goes, okay, I guess I can do that. But thank you, Jane. You and the team are brilliant and we feel so well supported. And it's pretty obvious how much we all enjoy being part of this. And so if you want a taster, I really do recommend you dip your toe in the water or in the pool in August and see what you think. Adley and Jodie, thank you so much. And Jodie, I know you probably went through at least 5 red lights to get home in time.
Too many speed cameras, hopefully, yes.
And Adley, you get the prize for being the most beautifully dressed of all of us, as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks guys, it's fun, and I hope everybody listens to this and gives it a go. So yeah,
wonderful.
I'm going to say good afternoon, and you guys, it's good night, isn't it?
Good evening. Thanks.
Good evening.
Thank you so much, Annie and Noel. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.
All the best.